Are you washing our hands regularly?
Regular and thorough washing of hands with soap under running water.
Wash your hands with soap under running water.
Wash your hands regularly and thoroughly with soap and under running water.
Wash your hands with soap and running water. A message that couldn't be overemphasized, especially in these times when continents are trying so hard to stay alive. A time when the world's superpowers have been brought down to their knees and economies are gradually grinding to a halt. In the face of the fast-spreading coronavirus, hand washing has been one of the few precautionary measures that has been largely touted by our health experts and our world leaders as a way to stay safe and keep the virus away from us, our friends, and our families. One such person leading this cause and helping to save so many lives is Mrs. Veronica Bucket, the name behind the Veronica Buckets. Today we interact with her on the show. It promises to be educative and informative. Join us as we learn more. My name is Wanda Amihegan and this is People and Places.
I was observing you washing your hands.
Okay.
Yes.
Did I do it right or wrong?
Not quite.
Okay.
First of all, you didn't wet your hands before taking the soap.
So then let's go to the...
Secondly, you didn't wash the top of the
tap.
As you remember, you opened the tap with your contaminated hand.
Okay.
So as you wash your hands, wash the top of the tap.
When
you are rinsing
with
with soap, when you are rinsing the top of the, then when you take the tissue, wipe your hand and use the
tissue on the, okay.
Mm-hmm.
So can we go through this together?
Yes.
Wet my hands.
Wet your hands so that the that can form easily.
Mm-hmm. And then the soap.
Get close to the hair so that you won't...
So I do this?
Yeah, wash it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Continue washing your hands. You are now rinsing, so rinse the top of the tap.
Okay.
Yes. Finish rinsing your hand. Take the tissue.
Right.
Anyway, your hands are clean, so it's okay.
Okay. Then.
So with this, you avoid contaminating your hand because you cleaned the top of the tap as you were cleaning your hands, and then that's it. So.
All right. Welcome back. This is People and Places, and our guest for today is Mrs. Veronica Bucket. She has worked with the Ghana Health and Reference Laboratory and the Ghana AIDS Control Program. She is widely known as the name behind the Veronica Buckets, which is helping save lives in today's situation of the coronavirus. Join me, welcome Mrs. Bekoe. Hello, ma'am.
Hello, Wanda.
How are you doing?
I'm good.
Okay, so we can't shake hands because
no.
There's no shaking of hands in this era at all.
No.
We have come to know the Veronica Bucket is everywhere. It's all over the place, especially because washing of hands has become very critical, more critical than ever in this period where there's a COVID-19 and the world is trying to deal with it. But before we go into all of that, can we know who Mrs. Veronica Bucket is?
Okay. Veronica Bucket started her education at the Dodua Road Middle Girls School, Dodua Road Girls School, currently Kimbu Girls School, next to the Ghana Law School.
Okay.
So I started there from class 1 till I started my common entrance in the middle school and went to Aburi Girls Secondary School, where I had my secondary education up to upper 6. From there, I worked for a while at the Bank of Ghana because of health challenges, and later on proceeded to university. On completion in 1972, I was employed by the Ministry of Health and posted to the Public Health and Reference Laboratory at Kolibu. I worked there from 72 till 2008, and I retired. And then I joined the National AIDS Control Program, where I worked till 2016, and I retired again finally, and came home.
Great. Do you have siblings?
Yes.
What was growing up?
I'm the second of 5.
Okay.
Growing up was fun. We had a very strict mom and a laid-back daddy. I think they complemented each other very well. But we were taught things in life that has helped us up to this level. My mother wouldn't let you get off with any nonsense. We learned discipline, did all the things that we had to do, and you were even afraid to go and cause trouble outside, because if you come home, you know what is going to happen to you. So growing up was quite interesting. We thought it was harsh, but later on we realized that it did us a lot of good, and this is what has helped us up till now.
So did you pick anything from your mother's strict?
Oh yes, I'm a very principled person and disciplined.
Okay, great. Have you always wanted to be a scientist?
Well, I don't know, but somehow I liked science, and I didn't have any difficulty with the subjects. I enjoyed what I was doing, so I think that was it. And also, I'm one person who doesn't like talking much or writing a lot. If A is A, B is B, I put it down and that's the end of it. So I think that was one reason, one thing that motivated me to do science instead of the arts, where you have to write long essays and things.
Okay, so you did science throughout your schooling?
Yes.
And your secondary school?
Yes, and continue. No, in secondary school you do both arts and science. Then in Form 4, you choose between science and arts. So at that level, I chose science.
Let's deal with the public health and reference laboratory first. What was your experience there like? What exactly were you doing there?
Okay, well, when I was employed, I was sent to the public health and reference laboratory. It was just one building near the old medical school mortuary. And the staff I met there, from the head right down to the orderly, motivated me, because you could see that there was teamwork. Everybody did what they had to do with joy, and they were very good mentors, and I liked the way they were working and the results they were achieving. There was one particular lady who helped me a lot, because I had come straight from school. I didn't know anything about laboratory science. I got in at the lowest level, assistant biologist. And she was then, I think, principal biologist. And she helped me a lot. So finally, I got to the level of a chief biologist before I retired. Initially, that department was dealing with cholera, the diseases of public health interest, cholera and other diarrheal diseases like the salmonellas and the shigellas, TB, STDs and other things, but mainly cholera. But on the advent of HIV in 1986, they took that up too. And I was one of the 8 people selected to be taught how to do the testing. We had people coming from Welcome Foundation in UK to train us to do the testing. And so since then, I did a lot. I basically was stuck with HIV testing. And that was what I did throughout.
At that point, you were still at the laboratory?
That was in 1986.
Okay.
Yes.
So that was how you got the connection to the Ghana AIDS?
Exactly. National AIDS Control Program.
Okay.
Yes. So even when I was at the laboratory, I was on the HIV bench, doing all the trainings and taking part in the researches connected with HIV. When I retired, they thought I could be of help to them to roll out the testing. So I became the focal person at the National AIDS Control Program for HIV testing.
Okay. We have been learning from Mrs. Veronica Bekoe, the brain behind the Veronica Buckets. And this is People and Places. We'll take a short break. We'll be back. Welcome back. This is still People and Places, and we are speaking to Mrs. Veronica Bekoe. So, Auntie Vero, can you tell us when your program, your work with the National AIDS Control Program ended?
It ended in 2016.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And since then I've been home. Occasionally I do some training for maybe some NGOs. That's all. But basically I'm at home most of the time.
How has your family dealt with all of the support system?
Very, very supportive. Because when I was actively working, I used to travel a lot.
Okay.
I traveled all over the country, from the south to the north. Every year I had to go all around the country, maybe twice a year. And they were very supportive.
But how did you feel as a woman in an arguably male-dominated profession? Because there are not a lot of female biological scientists in this part of the world.
Seriously, I didn't feel anything. I was just doing what I needed to do. I wasn't competing with any man. I was doing what I had to do, and I wasn't even aware that I was a woman. I just did what I had to do.
But from the other side, did you have challenges from your colleagues?
No, not at all. They were very cooperative and supportive. Maybe that was why I was so comfortable.
What have been some of your biggest breakthroughs since you found yourself in this profession?
Number one, being selected as one of the few people to be trained in HIV testing, because HIV was then new. Nobody knew anything about it. Secondly, initially we didn't have public health labs. I don't know whether you are aware that we now have 4 public health labs. I was very instrumental in the establishment of those 4 laboratories. And then US government supported Ghana to prepare some of the laboratories, the teaching hospitals and regional hospitals for international accreditation. I was also very instrumental in that one.
Okay, but I know you've also been honored by the First Lady.
Yes, I was honored because of the Veronica Bucket.
Okay.
Yes. So
we'll come to that later.
Okay.
Okay. STEM education in Ghana. I know there are still efforts to get a lot more girls involved in science and technology. What is your view of the progress of the program since it was introduced into Ghana?
I can say that looking back, it's progressed quite a lot. And I'm happy more and more girls are getting interested in doing the sciences. Seriously, I don't know how this thing came about globally, that science is for boys. Because, girls too can do science and do it very well. So I'm happy that we've taken that on board and we are helping the girls to have more interest in the science.
What inspires you in life?
To get to the top wherever I find myself. and I look at people around me, and maybe I'm lucky. Wherever I find myself, I get people who are good mentors, people who encourage me. You know, and there's a lot of teamwork. And I remember that the O-level certificate testimonial I got, the headmistress said I was a natural leader. Somehow, wherever I find myself, I feel like motivating people, pulling people along with me so that we should achieve results.
The Veronica Buckets, let's narrow it down to the conversation. Okay. What inspired this idea?
Like I said, U.S. government at a point, early 1990s, supported Ghana to put up the public health labs, and it came with training. So the lab advisor who came down tasked me with the responsibility of doing training on infection prevention. Before the labs were put up, we had to do training, baseline studies. So in the baseline studies, like finding out what existed so that we could build on it, we realized that infection prevention was a big gap, specifically hand washing.
Okay.
Mind you, we are talking about the labs now. And you know that we normally have water problems. Some of the facilities did not have running water, and they were just using bowls to wash their hands.
Okay.
And you see the problem. The bowl with the water sitting there may be used even by one person. It's only clean for the person to...
The first person.
The first time he or she washes his hand. But if she doesn't throw that water away, she would rather be contaminating herself. But you know, these bowls of water are used by more than one person. And so instead of decontaminating their hands after working, they are contaminating their hands.
Exactly.
So at a point, it was around that time that the people who sell porridge, cocoa, started putting the product in aluminum containers. So it just occurred to me, if we could just fix a tap to any container to produce running water, that could help. So I discussed with the lab advisor. She was an American, and she said, that's a good idea, let's try it. So I made a prototype of aluminum sheet, made it into a container, and had the tap fixed to it.
Okay.
And we used it to provide running water all over the country in the laboratory to demonstrate how to use running water to wash hands, and to let them understand that washing your hands in bowl doesn't help at all. So that was the origin of the Veronica Bucket.
Okay, but we have come to know you as the inventor of these buckets.
Yeah.
But would you call yourself the inventor of these buckets, especially because it appears some of these things were in existence? Was there anything like this at the time you had the idea?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay.
If they were, then they were not in smaller units like I proposed, so that they could be used at various places, movable and handy. You can take it wherever. But if there were containers with tabs, maybe they were containers, big containers to hold water for household or institutions, but not the small units that I proposed. I'm not sure whether even those big drums were in existence before I introduced the Veronica Bucket.
Okay. And how useful was this at the time you introduced it? First off, when did this start being used? At what?
As early as maybe 1992 or 93 in the laboratories initially.
Okay.
Because remember, we introduced it in the laboratories. But when for example, the clinics, the staff or the head of the clinic or hospital realized that this was what had been introduced to the laboratory, and they found it useful. They introduced to other parts of the facility where they did not have running water. Okay. And the rest is history. It has gone way beyond the health sector. It's being used everywhere to provide.
Beyond Ghana?
Beyond Ghana, yes. If you go online, you Google, you see that it's being used beyond Ghana to provide running water for washing.
That's a great initiative. We see a lot of these buckets now, like all over the place. People are even creating their own buckets. First off, how do you feel about that? The fact that people are now making money of something that you invented. And also, did you have an idea to patent it at the time you introduced it?
Well, I did, and I tried with Registrar General, but you know the bureaucracy. And when I was working, actively working, I didn't have time to be running around. So the go come, just discouraged, and I stopped. I gave it up because seriously, that wasn't my focus. My focus was to provide something that could help us, those of us working in the health sector, to prevent ourselves from being infected or us infecting others.
Okay.
So I just gave up on it. And unfortunately for me, everybody is now on board, making money out of it, whilst I'm not making anything because I am not even getting the containers to make the buckets to sell. It's a challenge.
Okay, where were you getting these from?
From the industrial area.
Okay.
All the plastic companies producing, but you know what is happening, and so it's really, really difficult for me to get the containers to make the buckets.
So you just take consolation in the fact that at least the name is stuck in the mind.
Not the name person, but at least I also have been able to introduce something, do something that is helping mankind. That's a lot of satisfaction.
Seeing that
for me.
your invention has become very useful, exceptionally useful in these times when coronavirus is chasing everybody around the world. How does that make you feel?
It makes me feel good that at least, you know, I introduced this thing, like I said, early 1990s, and it was quiet. Few people were using, nobody knew about it, but see where we are now, so I thank God for it.
Great. There are concerns about the buckets being manual, because when you are opening the tap connected to the container, you are using your hand. Supposing you have germs or the virus on it, you open with that hand, you wash your hand, you still touch the tap to close it.
Yes.
So are we looking at any improvement to this invention? Are you thinking of making it sensory? Are you thinking of adding any technology to improve on this manual version?
It will be good to have a pedal, you know, container where you just press with your foot and then the water. And I understand some people have done it, but I don't know how far that is true. But even with this one, during the training, we teach people how to keep the top clean. When you lather your hands, as you wash your hands, wash the top of the tap.
Okay.
When you finish, rinse the top of the tap. When you use a tissue, and we advocate that everybody should use tissue and not cloth towel. If you are going to use cloth towel, use it, then it should be your own, not for communal use.
Okay.
When you are wiping your hands with, you take the tissue to wipe your hands, use it to close the tap. So we devise ways and means of not contaminating your hands back once you finished washing.
Okay. Great.
Wash the top of the tap whilst you are washing your hands.
Have any of your children by chance followed in your stead?
No.
How many children do you have, by the way?
I have 5.
Okay, and none of them is doing science?
2 of them science, but they are IT.
Okay. So I know aside hand washing, there are other safety mechanisms that have been proposed. There's the sanitizer, and then there are gloves. But you see a lot of people using these things maybe in the wrong way. What do you have to say about that?
Okay. For the sanitizers, it's okay to use the sanitizers if you don't have access to running water to wash your hands. But please, if the hands, for example, are obviously dirty, like with grease and oils and things, the sanitizers won't help.
They don't work?
No, they don't work. And even if you use the sanitizers, so long as you don't have running water, when you have access to running water, wash your hands, because the sanitizers don't kill all the, it's not 100%. Seriously, it's not 100%. With regard to the gloves, it's a problem because you see people wearing gloves, walking about, touching everything, everybody, including their own faces and noses. But let me tell you, the gloves, some of them have holes in them which you don't see with your eyes.
They do?
They are microscopic.
Okay.
So even if you are wearing the gloves, when you remove the gloves, wash your hands. It is very important that you wash your hands after using sanitizers and gloves when you have access to running water.
Okay. So the ultimate alternative is to wash your hands with soap and
water running water.
And wipe carefully with tissue, disposable tissue.
Yes.
Okay. Just before we leave though, I couldn't help but notice your hair color. You seem to be a pretty fashionable person. How has life been since you finished working? What do you do for fun, for a hobby? Anything else you're doing?
Well, for hobby, I enjoy cooking, and I travel. And when I'm in town, I involve myself in church activities.
Okay.
So this is what I've been doing. But most of the time I'm at home.
Are you home alone or you're with your
I'm
husband?
home with my family, my husband and children.
Okay, that's great. Thank you so much for speaking with People and Places. We are happy and we are impressed about the invention and how it's helping so many people around the world, and it's helping save lives as well. That's everything you need to know about the Veronica Buckets, and most importantly about the brain behind this invention. Until we meet in the next edition, keep safe, adhere to all the necessary safety precautions. Remember to wash your hands as frequently as possible with soap and running water. This has been People and Places, and my name is Wanda Hagan.